This is Find Your Flow, a show about navigating the complexities of life and business through the lens of curiosity. I'm your host, Angelique, and I bring together experts to deliver responsibly curated conversations and perspectives that aim to progress people and the planet. All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. If you have been on any social media account, you've likely come across an influx in fitness instructors and self-proclaimed gurus with blanketed approach on movement, fitness, and even nutrition. Now, we all know everybody has a unique body. We are all different. And today we chat with David Acosta, who is an international movement facilitator, educator with a mission to progress the conversation around body, mind, and spirit through movement. So having been trained by Anthony, I will admit his approach is anything but conventional or of the norm. But that's also what makes him so popular and so unique in his approach, for the better or for the worse. So I'm excited to introduce both my friend and our guest today. Welcome, Anthony, calling in from Brussels. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing well. I'm really well. And I
love
always answer that honestly. So yeah, I'm in Brussels right now, by way of Dubai, originally from America.
I love it. Well, we've got a lot to dive into today. So tell us about some of the beginnings of your fitness journey. Obviously, you started here in North Carolina, or tell us more about it.
Yeah, so I mean, actually, the early beginnings was my dad is
That's
a
right.
Muay Thai fighter. So it's like at age 6, in New York, I remember him teaching my older brother and his friends and any neighborhood kids martial arts, mostly Muay Thai, Thai boxing. And then I progressed in Muay Thai and kickboxing and those styles of martial arts. But then I got more into music, started playing cello, singing, dancing, and then went full on into musical theater. Then studied more dance because that interested me more. And then I became a singer who danced into instead a dancer who sang. So like my disciplines kind of swapped. And then shortly after choosing to stop dancing, I went into medical aesthetics, have worked in that arena, and all while doing that, I discovered bar fitness first. Then after teaching bar, I taught mat Pilates, hot yoga sculpt, cycling, megaformer, Pilates reformer, and all of the things in between, which eventually landed me into Dubai, where I taught at multiple studios. I had the opportunity to open my own studio called Collective Movement, and then ultimately led me to my own method and methodology as far as teaching, which is where I'm really happy that I'm landed.
Love it. Love it. And I love seeing the progression and honestly, the influence that you brought from dance into where you are today. The one thing I didn't hear you mention is a lot of your work with pre and postnatal clients of yours, because you also do prenatal and postnatal.
Yeah. So
Pelvic
I
floor
started
training.
doing prenatal and postpartum really randomly. I was teaching cycling and then and I was teaching bar and yoga at the same time, but never advertised pregnancy clients. And one of my cycling clients was pregnant and she's like, "Hey, do you feel comfortable training me?" And it was like, I go through these phases of being maverick as far as like, I'll figure it out once I get there. And then it was in luckily one of the phases where I'm like, you know what, I can do this because through Pilates, through bar training, through dance training, we learn so much about the pelvic floor. So I was like, sure. At that time, I didn't take a prenatal postpartum training course, but then I took her on as a client and I noticed that my training modality led her throughout her whole pregnancy with no hip pain, no back pain, a strong, deep core system, and then eventually feeling really good after she gave after she delivered. So I'm like, okay, I'm onto something. And that's when I started plugging in with the pelvic floor physiotherapist and
Right.
really kind of creating more of a system towards that training. I just don't teach it in group and I don't advertise it too much, but that is really a random thing that I'm known for as well in the community.
But it makes sense too, because it's such a personalized approach, unique to that individual, that mom too, which I think is, and I have to congratulate you too, because you are one of those people that I feel like you look at and you dive into research so much. I mean, even I know your work in the medical aesthetic space, you are somebody that is so adamant and consistent with doing your own research and educating yourself in so many different ways, even in ways that might be, competing to one another. So I really congratulate you on that. And, I'm curious when we talk about, some of these myths and misconceptions in movement. You've been in the US, you've gone to Dubai, you're now in Brussels. What are maybe some of the core differences that you've seen in this space across these time zones?
I think America to Dubai was a big change for me because initially it was very hard for me to teach my method because even if I was on a schedule and when I first arrived in Dubai, I solely worked for other people as a freelancer. So, they put me on the schedule teaching bar and, abs and booty and Pilates and Vinyasa yoga. But that title doesn't matter to me. In the end of the day, I try to make my classes super intuitive. So although I'm staying under the umbrella of, okay, it's a bar class, here's what people expect, I'm going to give them a little bit of that. But in the end of the day, it needs to be an intuitive process. And what I mean by that is I provide a warm up. And in the first 2 minutes of the warm up, I see and feel on an energetic level where people are struggling, where people need to pay more attention to. So I think when I arrived in Dubai, I was surprised at the different movement types because Dubai is such an expat city. So in one room, I had about 10 different mother tongues in that room. So although everyone speaks English, I immediately needed to change how I phrase things because using short-term phrases or using like sayings or even being like funny or off the cusp, like sassy to get a point across wasn't working. So I was like, okay, I need to get down to the brass tacks. I need to actually use primary English language and touch to get these people to move. And then it took about a year teaching in Dubai to like really get my flow because as I said, everyone teaches English and knows English, but teaching embodiment course, trying to get them to understand, hey, I'm telling you to move your arm, but I don't want you to think about just moving the limb. I want you to move the energy within the limb. I want you to imagine how the energy within the limb and how it's affecting the energy around the limb. So really teaching in Dubai had transformed me. And then eventually I found my people. I found the people who were down for my movement method. And also along the way, I made a lot of enemies, both from students and teachers, because if you present something that people are not used to or is out of their norm that makes them question their process, it's scary. So I think once I kind of got past that and just focused on my people, then things got better. And now in Brussels, I think it's very similar. It's a quite linear place, especially when you compare it to Paris, which is an hour and a half train ride away, or Berlin, or even Amsterdam has a certain quirkiness. Brussels and Belgium is kind of linear. They enjoy the predictable. They enjoy
Okay.
routine.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not going after everyone. I'm not here to sell you my agenda.
Right.
But if my agenda makes you uncomfortable, you need to ask yourself why.
Yep. Yep. I
Because
think,
there's a reason.
yeah. And that is something I think can go across so many different areas in our lives and even, personally or professionally. Is like we might not be for everybody, but that's okay because we have to, there are core people that will understand and come and gravitate towards you because of who you are and the way that you teach and be open to that feedback in that capacity. Because if you just blanket yourself to everybody in the world, well, then really who are you having an impact on?
Of course. And even to mention professionally, because I'm sure you're not going to have many listeners right now who are, movement professionals. But if you're in an office and you have someone who is
Yeah.
a colleague of yours in the same role and they're doing things in a different way, but you guys are ending with the same productivity at the end of the quarter, but it makes you uncomfortable how they go about things, you need to ask yourself why.
Yeah.
Because we're getting to the same place at the end,
Hmm.
but that question will tell you, that person who drives you crazy will
Yeah.
tell you more about yourself than
Yeah.
someone who assimilates with you, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to kind of pull a little bit out of the beginning of that too, it's like, in the professional sense, it's and pulling from your growth when you were to learn how to speak to people across all these different languages in a way that they can understand. Those moments of growth, those moments come from moments of being uncomfortable. And when it comes to the business side of things, it's like, well, if we do everything to the status quo and we avoid trying to be uncomfortable, we avoid and push out people that want to challenge that status quo, then how the hell are we supposed to grow? Because if we just live in our comfort zone and live in these spaces of like, well, he wants to bring mindfulness into the workplace, or they want to talk about kindness in this space, or, I didn't like how they gave me feedback because it's not, it's not how I'm used to giving feedback, or I'm not ready for feedback, then I feel like it really, I mean, it comes from a space of fear, I think. And then it's, how do you really expect yourself to move forward if you don't work through those moments of discomfort?
Yeah. And I think this brings me to like the first misconception that I want to talk about,
Mhm.
because I think, I hear a lot of, I would say, trendy language as, and I'm sure if you're a listener across the country or across the world, you hear certain things that teachers use trendy language, like listen to your body. If something feels uncomfortable, just like don't do it. And that's one misconception. Discomfort can teach us a lot. And there is no such thing as negative feeling. The only negative thing that can come out of a movement practice is feeling nothing. So I'm going to repeat that again. There's no such thing as a negative feeling. And that goes professionally or personal growth as well. Feeling angry, or in the body, feeling tightness, or feeling in the hips a crunchiness. That's not negative, and that's nothing that you should shy away from. In conflict with your partner, if you have conflict and you feel a crunchy resistance, you're not going to just avoid that person. You need to speak to them. So, using that same analogy with your body, if you feel something that's uncomfortable, stay there for a moment. Don't shy away from it. Because as movement facilitators and fitness instructors, or even like you hear it in yoga practice, which is all supposed to be about mind body connecting, how are you connecting with your full mind, body, and spirit if you're avoiding so much? If you avoid the resistance, if you avoid pain even, then how are you learning all of the corners? So I think that's the biggest misconception, is avoiding things that make you uncomfortable physically or mentally. It's kind of like looking like at an egg and you're only looking at one side. Like, no, you want to see all directions of yourself. So I would say don't avoid when you feel something uncomfortable. Would be the first misconception, because our bodies are so hardwired to protect us. So you're not going to get a big injury. And even if you do get a little pull or a little sprain, I believe that small injuries prevent bigger ones. So if you actually go to
Like
those
that.
places of resistance
Right.
and you do get a small sprain, it's more likely to lead you on an exploration. It's more likely to lead you to a self exploration or talking to a professional, because a hamstring, tear on one leg might bring you to a physio who will look at the pelvis, who will notice something's
Right.
up with that, who will then look at the ribs and say, oh, it's actually a spiral injury that comes from the ribs. So then it's like, actually, those moments of resistance led you to something bigger and greater, which will help you in the long run.
Yeah.
Does that journey suck? Yeah, because guess what? It's non-linear and it's all over the place and it's not what you expected, but
Hmm.
that's life.
Yep. Yep. I love that, Anthony. It kind of reminds me of this moment in my yoga teacher training where And I'm fortunate, I don't have severe scoliosis, but I remember in my yoga teacher training, when it came down to working one-on-one with my instructor, they were like, you have to relearn how to do yoga on one whole side of your body because of this. Just because you can touch your toes doesn't mean you're doing it in the right way. You have to do it in the right way for your particular body. And damn it, did that piss me off. I mean, I was just like, well, I can get down to this level, but it's like not without hurting myself in the motion because I wasn't doing the movement right. I wasn't, the alignment wasn't there as it needed to be because of my specific body. So I had to back off in all of these different ways, and it sucked. It was uncomfortable. I was annoyed of it because one side of my body responded in one way versus the other side that was like, we need to reformulate and create different foundations for your movement. And it was through that discomfort that I think gave me a lot more sense of empathy for those moments. But I think you're absolutely right. It's like you never know when one of those moments of discomfort will ignite so many other areas of growth because of moving forward in that space. One of the questions that came up through this too is, do you think that, and I don't think this is just like, currently in social media in the last 5 years, this has been happening for a while, but do you feel like the sense of instant gratification also holds people back from these moments that maybe takes them away from wanting to push a little bit harder in their fitness or movement journey?
So I think this blends easily with kind of the next misconception I can mention, because I think the wellness industry, like we in the 90s and the 2000s, it was fitness. And now we're into wellness because we decided to make all of our social media colors pastel and beige. And we talk about multivitamins. So now we can mention it wellness instead of fitness, but all the
The whole
same,
circle.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
The wellness industry, I think, today is clever because they've committed the fact, like they've told their consumers that it's not going to be instant gratification. And I think even the everyday person kind of like is like, okay, quick results like isn't like where I want to like go to. But now the new fad is linear. So it's like, okay, every wellness account, every teacher is talking about like, oh, it's going to be a longer journey than you thought. And their consumers are like, okay, I'm okay with that because we're in 2023 and I've learned that. But now it's under a different cloak. So now let's talk about non-linear and linear. So it's about linear results and linear journeys, which I think is the greatest misconception. Because let's say something like flexibility, if you follow a yoga account, because yoga accounts are the bane of my existence,
Oh my gosh.
because they're like, low back pain, do these 5 easy things every single day. And they mention, because they're a wellness account, it's going to take a while. Don't be hard on yourself.
Right.
If you approach resistance, be easy, be empathetic to yourself. And I'm not saying any of those statements are wrong, but what's wrong is the message that any wellness journey is linear. And the word linear is A to B or B to C.
Well, something that bugs me about those too is even from working with a physical therapist one-on-one, you can't blink at this shit. Like our bodies are so very different. And so I worry when it comes to try these 5 things and you're going to feel better. Maybe, but you could also do other harm in the journey as well. What are your thoughts there?
Or even alternatively, like do these 5 things, only 5 minutes a day. What are you doing for the rest of the 23 hours and 55 minutes? Like that's the conversation. And like, honestly, like in Dubai, especially, like I got to be a little bit more selective with clientele because like word just travels easier there and people want the next trendy teacher. So I became trendy as far as like a personal trainer there. And I got to deny a lot of people, which felt good because it wasn't like my ego feeling good, like, oh, I got to turn people away. But it felt good to finally educate people and invite them to either enter or exit, and the ones who wanted to exit. So what I mean by that is, like, when they talk to me about their goals, or, you know, how they want to feel or how they want to look, I'm like, okay, we're meeting 45 minutes 3 times a week. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you about the other time, and you need to be
Mhm.
honest about that.
Right.
And you need to, like, think that it actually matters. And a lot of people don't think it matters. And they're like, oh, I have back pain. And I was like, yeah, well, look at the shoes that you're wearing. Like, your
How are
toes are
you
really,
sleeping?
your,
Yeah. How
yeah,
are
how
you
are you
sleeping?
sleeping? Your toes are crunchy. Like, do you sleep with a pillow underneath your knees? Oh, I don't know.
Uh,
Well, start to learn how you sleep.
yeah.
Start to learn how you walk. So it's like everyone thinks that, you know, anything can be not a linear journey, and it's just
Mhm.
not. And we
Yeah.
see this personally and professionally. It's like X does not equal Y,
Right.
because we have a whole bunch of other things. You know, no matter what your goal is, get out of the linear and
Mhm.
welcome a non-linear journey, a
Yeah.
non-linear journey that welcomes different detours
Yeah.
in life.
Well, I think that it is we're not for everybody. You have to find your people, and that is something that comes into play when you look at your personal relationships with individuals and your relationship with your fitness instructor, your doctors, your employers. I mean, it is everybody. You've got to be unapologetic about who your people are. And I think when you have resistance and when you've been met with that resistance, it's because those just aren't your people. They're not ready to receive feedback in those ways. Now, that doesn't mean that, they're bad or you're bad. It just means that their journey will look a little bit different. And I like your emphasis on, the nonlinear too, because, it's this emphasis of all of our journeys are going to look different, but we have to be okay with the journey, not just with the destination. And if we're uncomfortable with that, then it's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, and also learning that the journey is the actual destination. It's
Yeah.
like the journey is our actual life.
Yeah.
So, like, okay, you want to, let's say, like, have your body look a certain way, and
Yes.
that's your end goal, like body composition. And that's personally, like, thank goodness that I don't care about that whatsoever. But, like, you
Looks like
know,
how you feel.
it's for some people, you know, it's all about how I feel. But it's like, if someone does have a composition journey goal,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, you have that goal, and let's even say you give yourself like a proper holistic time frame, like you're working with a holistic trainer, and you're going to a nutritionist, and you're checking in with the physio. Let's say they're doing everything right on paper.
Right.
Once again, even if they give themselves 2 years to get there, what does that process feel like? Like, you're devoting 2 years into that goal, and it's like, okay, but what's the journey? I would
Hmm.
much rather be like, I want to enjoy every day. I want to enjoy every meal that I eat. I
Yeah.
want to enjoy every movement experience that I have. Sure,
Sometimes.
like I said in the beginning, sometimes there's going to be resistance because it's an exploration.
Sure.
But I think when you so focus on the end goal and don't focus on the process, it's like you miss out on the exploration. So I would say, like, if you truly want to feel good in your body,
Hmm.
then get rid of the hard end goals.
Yeah.
Think about your process. Think about, how do I feel going to this class?
Hmm.
You know, how do I feel doing this flow? How does it make me feel having coffee with this friend? Don't go through the motions. Don't be like, I want more friends. Let me meet with more people. I want to get to my goal body. So let me work out more. Okay, quality over quantity. I thought we were supposed to learn that like way long ago. That saying is very old. So why do we still have such a problem sitting with that? Quality, quality time with ourselves, quality time with our bodies, and remembering the journey is the actual reason why we're here. We're not meant to be on this earth and walk the earth just to get to an end goal. We're meant to walk the earth and enjoy our time here, in my opinion.
Mic drop. No, it's not. I mean, yeah, it's your opinion, but there's so much truth embedded in that because what you're talking about is being present too. It's being present in the moment, and it's a struggle. I struggle with it too because it's like I have this ideal ending of like, oh, why am I not here yet? But then it's like I never give myself an opportunity to say, wow, I've actually come very far. Wow, I've actually progressed in my movement journey, my professional journey. I'm here. So I think it's, how do we just be more present in the now and enjoy that journey as we go?
Yeah, and I think,
The destination can change. And
yeah, and
as so many times, it really, really does. The destination
yeah,
changes.
the destination changes. I mean, listen, the most powerful questions you can ask yourself
Mhm.
are how and why. And I think in this wellness world that we're living in, I think the how is being taken care of. So we can list this as another bulleted like misconception. It's like, okay, I want to feel, more flexible, and the how is out there. The how, use these 5 steps, use this membership. I want to fix my gut health. How is out there because
Mhm.
how is something that we can capitalize on.
You got it.
But why? No one can capitalize on your why yet. So that's why no one talks about that. I can't capitalize on your why. The only thing I can capitalize on is being a coach to you
Mhm.
and bring you on a journey. That's the only, but I can't make a product
Right. Right.
that solves that question. So that's why I need people to focus on not the how all the time. How do I get more flexible? How do I fix my gut health? How do I get from a size 4 to a size 2? The hows are out there, and capitalism is taking care of that. But who's asking you why? When you are sitting across from a teacher after class, let's use yoga as an example, because I love attacking yoga because it's something that you can buy a certification in, like so many other things. So it's like if you're sitting across from a teacher, and I see it all the time after classes, can you help me get my handstands? Like I'm really focused. I'm having trouble with this handstand. I'm having trouble with pincha, which is where you put your elbows down and lift your hips without using your head. I used to help students after class getting into these positions. But then I became not an instructor, but a teacher. And I started asking them why. Why first?
Why? Why do you need to
Why?
be doing these?
Yeah, why? Oh, well, because I want to advance. Why?
Yeah.
Oh, because like I want to feel like I'm going somewhere. Why? Like we can keep going. And then you end up finding out that they're trying to advance their yoga practice because they walked into a yoga studio one day to be more relaxed. And then they actually ended up walking into a place that can give them little biscuits of tokens. Like, oh, if I keep coming, I'm going to get a plank. Oh, if
Yeah.
I keep coming, I'm going to,
Progress.
be able to do crow. If I keep
Mhm.
coming, I'm going to be. So we end up satisfying these little humans inside of us that work on reward.
Yeah.
And then when you actually ask why, when I ask the student, why do you want to get your headstand? Oh, well, I want to feel better about the headstand isn't going to make you feel better about yourself. And that's also
They can
something
post it on Instagram.
they can post on Instagram. Exactly.
Which I'm sorry,
It's,
but like aloe yoga, you'd think at this point we'd kind of be like, all right, aloe, like we're gonna stop posting the ultimate, these positions that these people get in. I'm like, this is so unrealistic and unhealthy. And it's all these like skinny twig-like people that get into them. And I'm like, this is what we're now striving for. And it's not helping us. In fact, it's
well, I
hurting.
mean, yeah, the biggest wave over the past 2 years was body acceptance. So now they have people in bigger bodies and fat people. So fat is a term that like we want to use positively or neutrally now, but they're also doing the poses. So it's like, okay, inclusivity is like, oh, okay, let's make sure we have people of color and fat people doing the poses, but they're still focusing on the
Challenging.
postures,
Yeah.
and they don't focus on the feeling.
Hmm.
And I used to be, and in being a trained dancer, I also used to focus a lot on the postures.
Right.
But the postures and the movement is just a way to unlock the door and open the passage into your mindfulness journey. So it's like that's part of it. It's like, yeah, I might challenge you physically, but it's not because I'm trying to like count calories on my damn watch, or
Mm,
it's not because I'm trying to tick a box of like, oh, I want to make my clients sweat so they come back.
right.
I make my clients sweat because I need them to get into a flow, which the doors of the mind are open, the windows of the
Love
mind
that.
are
Love
open.
that. Love that.
So it's like, that's the why. And
Right.
that's why I'll teach a certain thing. So
Right.
I always know, and why do I teach mountain climbers? Oh, because I want to make them sweat, because my why is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well, I feel like
like what's your why?
we will have many more conversations of this too, because I'm just thinking of all these different topics that I'd love to touch on, of things that I see commonly in the fitness industry. And I look forward to having those conversations too and expanding that. Anthony, one of the last questions I want to ask, because I know you do some of the virtuals even from Brussels. How can people get a hold of you? How can people find you? How can people follow you?
So follow me on Instagram, anthony.david.acosta. That's Acosta. And from Instagram, you will see an honest look into what it's like to be stuck in a wellness industry while trying to find my own journey. So depending on the day or days, you might not see me post multiple times, but then all of a sudden I'll come out of nowhere and go on a rant and show you the real honest truth about what healing looks like. And I try to be as transparent as possible. And then if there's something in your mind that makes you question something that I post, or it makes you curious, reach out,
Hmm.
because curiosity, even if it's negative, can lead you to some beautiful, beautiful journeys.
I love it. I love it. I look forward to having you on here again, Anthony. And I look forward to coming to visit you in Brussels. So I will see you soon, my friend.
See you soon, my friend.